This is Faking It. Welcome to episode number 13. I'm your host, Liz Hodson. And if you're just joining us, Faking It is a podcast based on the notion that we're all just getting through life, experience by experience, faking it till we make it. On this episode, I sit down with an old classmate of mine from film school, past Cineplex pre-show host, and probably one of the nicest Americans I've ever met, Ben Gordon. Here we go. So, hey Ben.
Hey,
Ben
Liz.
Gordon. I haven't
Liz.
seen you in years, man.
It's been years. I've missed you.
I missed you too. We went to film school together.
We did. Back in, I don't want to date it.
Don't date it.
Okay.
So you're a Canadian now.
Kind of,
You were
yes.
American. Are we allowed to talk about this?
We can totally talk about it.
I don't know why we wouldn't be. It's not like you're on the run or anything. Maybe you are. Tell me one. Why would you say that? Yeah. You were fully American when I knew you last.
100%.
You were 100% American. Mm-hmm. Not in the way that people might. That's not a negative thing, by the way, for listeners out there.
There could be
You were 100% American the last time I saw you.
Yes, true. Correct. There could be some listeners out there that hear that and shudder. They go,
right.
Oh my God, does that mean like he's a full-on like neocon? No. Absolutely
what's a neocon?
Like a neoconservative, like super right wing.
Oh.
I'm far from that. Not to get into political leanings.
No, we
too
won't
quickly.
get into politics. But
Yeah.
you're right. You don't strike me. I mean, I was saying 100% American, as in like if people knew who Ben was, they'd be like, "Oh, what a lovely American he is," because you are.
I'm not like
You're not an American.
I'm not like an American.
No,
I'm not an
it's not an
American.
American kind of thing.
No, but I am. I was born in the United States and lived there until I was 17, and then came to Canada for university.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's always interesting to go into this, but why? How did you find York? Like the film program that we both went to was like, it's not a huge program. It's not like we had a lot of people in it. How did you find it?
Yeah.
I don't know this about you, actually.
So when I was in high school, I've known my entire life I wanted to be involved with filmmaking. At first it was acting or like performing, and then I'd say somewhere around middle school, I wanted to be a screenwriter, and then I took some directing programs, like summer programs, when I was in high school. So I've always been interested in cinema and the arts. And so I really wanted to go to film school. But what's funny is at the time, in 2005, it was like prohibitively expensive to go to any major film school in the United States. So
like more than regular school?
Yeah, well, not just more than regular school. It was just in general. Like, just say you wanted to go. Let's say you wanted to go to NYU, for instance. I think at the time it might have cost like $45,000 a year, just in general.
What?
Yeah, and so
But why?
I don't know.
I mean, like, why
That's
though?
what everyone's wondering is like now, and my brother's about to go to school this fall, and it's like, I really believe that the pendulum is going to swing the other way, where it's like, why would we spend so much money just for post-secondary education?
And that's 4 years?
It was each year. So like, I didn't want to end up with like $200,000 of undergraduate
but
debt.
why? Why wouldn't you want that much money when you're coming out as a filmmaker? I mean, what are people doing?
Just
like,
to toss around, just be like, oh man, like this is such great debt I'm in. You know?
It's just the best to be in that. That is absurd.
Yeah, so I was like, to me, I wanted to be in a city that had, production happening.
Right.
I wanted to be in a city that had like a film culture. Mm-hmm. And I knew that like to really do that in the U.S. would mean New York or Los Angeles. I mean, I was considering Boston. Mm-hmm. I was considering Austin, Texas for some reason.
Really?
Actually, it's funny. Like schools in the South, my second choice, if I didn't end up in Toronto, would have been the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, which doesn't, I mean, I guess had some things being made. But I was just I wasn't finding anything that was really clicking. And then I think it was one of my parents that was like, I think it was my mom. She was like, what about Toronto? Like, had you considered Toronto, Canada?
Toronto,
Canada.
Canada.
And so I was like, you know what? Like, let's take a look at it. Like, let's go check out the school.
Yeah.
What's funny about York is that it doesn't have a particularly like really visually beautiful campus.
No, York is disgusting.
It's kind of like a concrete wasteland.
Oh, it totally is.
But when I went up there in maybe October, so it was fall, so there was still some green, and I saw it was a good time to go. And when
little did you know, the majority of the year would be gray and dirty.
That's what I did not know.
Geese.
Exactly. Geese. So many evil geese, but we'll get there.
We will get there. Geese will.
A friend of mine was chased by a goose once, and it was horrifying. One of the geese on campus.
Am I that friend? Because it happened to me.
Did it happen to you?
Yes,
No. It was my good friend Jake. I remember was chased by a goose. He survived, but we went and checked out the school and the campus. I loved Toronto when I was visiting. I never really put together that York was so far removed from like downtown.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know that I was like going to technically be in North York, but. I saw that the program was competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about the film festival. I knew that like Toronto and Vancouver were viable. I wanted to be somewhat close to New England where I'm from, just for ease of getting home to visit and stuff like that. But I just didn't want to be across the country, at least not at age 17. But I checked out York and I was like, you know what? Like this seems right. It just sort of felt right. It felt like they were offering everything I wanted. I wanted the university experience. But also like a competitive film program. And so I applied for the York Film Program. I got as far as the interview stage, and I just completely botched my interview.
Really?
I was so pumped. Like I just put in my head, I like as soon as I found out about York, I don't know why I did this. I was just like, you know what? Forget everywhere else. Like who cares?
Shit,
so I didn't finish some of my applications because it's like, no, like Austin, forget it. Like why was I even considering Austin? And then Savannah, no, maybe not really. I was just like, I just put all my eggs in this one basket, which you're not supposed to do. No. But I was so ready. And like, I also applied for English concurrently because I was like, if I don't get into film, I'll just go sort of as like a fake English major. Like I'll just go to study English, but then I'll just sort of like barricade my way. I'll like force my way into the program. I'll just be there. Exactly. I'll just keep showing up and I'll bug them so much that they'll eventually let me in, which is actually how I got in because I did not get in past the interview stage my first attempt.
Really?
Did you know that?
No, man, I didn't know that.
I kept this all a secret from you guys.
You did a great job. I don't know if I could have. That's amazing. I would have never known.
I was so nervous because we drove there and it was like maybe like a 9 or 10 hour drive.
That's way too long to think about it.
So you're in a car and you're just thinking like, this is it. This is my opportunity. This is my moment.
No.
Yeah. And so I was
Did you get there and do the whole like, and not say anything?
No, I actually talked a lot, but I think that I just wasn't, I don't know if I communicated my love of the craft very well.
Okay.
And I can't even really remember, like some of our friends remember details. Like, do you remember which professor was in your room? See, I don't remember. I have no recollection at all.
So you had like a pretty intense...
It was an intense time. Yeah. And so, I left and I thought there was a shot and I didn't get in. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with plan B, which was sort of a risk, which was going to York as an English major and then just forcing my way in by just going there all the time.
Definitely a risk.
And to her credit, the amazing Barbara Evans, who was the chair at the time.
That's who interviewed me.
Was she the one who interviewed you?
Yes. Yeah.
So she was like, I went and spoke to her because she was the chair of the program and she was just like, like sometimes like people get through the cracks.
So you went for English.
Yes.
You showed up in fall.
Yeah.
And then you went right to talk to Barbara Evans.
I did go right to talk to her, but I just kept knocking on her door. But it was through the year. It took an extra year before I was in.
Oh, so were you at York before I was there?
Yes, for 1 year.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you graduate high school in 2006?
Yes.
Yes.
So you were already there in 2006.
I was there in 2006 as an English major.
Okay, I understand. So you perpetually just bugged the crap out of Barbara Evans?
I did, and she was so kind, and she had such great advice. The only caveat was that, and I'm sure you remember this, the application for the program was like 20 pages long.
Huge,
and it was like, write an essay and write a story and like write all these short form questions, responses to these short form questions. And so there was just like so much to do with this. And then you had to provide the portfolio. So I was like, well, you guys have my application like already. And it already got me to the interview stage. But she was kind of like, well, you should do it again. And so I had to answer every question again with a different answer and then write like a new story and then like make new films, just as a portfolio.
Right.
And then my second interview, I did via the phone.
Okay.
And I remember being asked, because I wrote sort of a film noir-esque story. And someone on the phone was like, what's your favorite like film noir from like between like 1941 and like 1950 or something?
Oh, assuming that just because you wrote that, you're
that
like the biggest film noir fan
and
ever.
I just sort of applied myself to a genre, and I was like, I'm just going to kind of work in this world. And so I was just like,
I'm 18.
Whoops. And then as soon as I didn't know, I hung up the phone and I was like, I'm done. I'm just
You
never getting
you're
in.
not gonna get in.
I wasted a year of my life trying to do this. I have to figure out another plan. And I actually never heard from them. And then at like sort of the last minute, I called. I remember I had a terrible cold, and I called their office, their admissions office, and I was just like, excuse me, like, can you tell me what's the status of my application is? And they were
I'm
like,
about to die. Please tell me I got in.
and I remember they were like, oh, we have you down for production. And I was like, what? Because I thought I was maybe going to get into theory or something, which there's nothing like, I mean, like theory would be great, but
it's not what you wanted.
It wasn't what I was aiming for. I wanted to make
films.
stuff. And so I was just like, are you sure? It's not a mistake. And they're like, yeah, no, you're in production. I was like, yay. Yeah, I was calling my grandmother. I was like, Bubby, we did it. We got in.
Bubby, high five,
Bubby. High five, Bubby. And I remember I couldn't talk, but I was so happy. It was like such a great day, to find out I was finally in this program. And so that's how I ended up at York. It's a long story, but yeah, it took a little while.
No, I mean, like, you really did fight for that. I love that. I didn't know, Ben. I didn't know.
It was a fight. It was really in my head at the time. I was like, this is the place I need to be.
You just knew it.
I just knew it. And so I just
And you loved Toronto so much that you stayed after your undergrad?
That's true. It wasn't the plan. Initially, I was like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go through the program. And then when I'm finished, I'll go back to the United States and I'll have all this knowledge and expertise, which is not the case. I very quickly learned that, I had cultivated relationships here. I had experiences here, that to leave, especially right after school, I think would have been that much harder. I did go home after I graduated for a few months and I was like, what am I going to do?
Right. Yeah. Like everybody
exactly
left and was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, now what?
I was like, I still have a course to finish. So whoops.
I'll just,
Thanks, guidance counselor or whoever didn't tell me that. I just was like ready to graduate. I was like, what? I don't have a course I need? Like, it was anyway. But yeah, I didn't quite know where I wanted to do.
I feel like so many people too at that school like don't know that they don't have enough credits or the right credits to graduate.
Always happens.
And then you're
really
like, what?
Does.
It's like, oh, you're missing 3 credits, and you're like, that's gonna derail my year.
It does. It completely does.
Terrible.
It's such a strange thing in the university world. Maybe just exclusive to York. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So you went back to New England.
Yes. I was like, what am I gonna do? I was really depressed actually out of school. Yeah. I didn't know what to do with myself.
Is that just because you were so interested in so many different areas, like in writing, but you also like to be in front of the camera?
Yeah.
And you also like to be directing.
And all those roles are so specific and very different, and it's not easy to just kind of like leap into a career.
No, I feel that. I completely understand. I almost wish that I was like, I could go and do the really intense cinematography stuff. Don't get me wrong, love it, but I don't. I think that I would be faking it to not in a positive way. I think that I'd be pushing myself too much for something that I can watch it and think it's great and maybe do some stuff from myself. But I couldn't push myself into the really, really heavy production stuff where I could go onto a set and be like, I'm going to be a PA and then do camera this and camera that. You know what I mean? I just felt like I picked the worst thing, or I felt connected to the worst things that were the hardest.
Right. You felt connected to the really creative
creative parts.
And that's the thing is like, we had sort of a healthy mix of storytellers in our program and very technical people, technically oriented people.
Very.
I did a little bit of PA work out of school. Once I decided I'm going to go back to Toronto, I interned at a commercial production company, and I did some office PA stuff, but I also was on set for a few jobs.
Okay.
And like to be a set PA is great in that you're learning like this is what a professional set is like. And the first thing you realize is like, wow, this really like just kind of chugs along in a way that a student production doesn't, because the students you're all learning at the same time.
Yeah, it comes to complete halt sometimes where you're like, so what? Now what, guys? Catering is not here.
Where's our actor? Our actor dropped
out. So gonna go for a smoke break.
Things kind of there's sort of a natural youthful lull with a student production. So I was like, wow, this is really efficient. But also, I mean, working as like a set PA, it's almost like, it's not as like nearly as laborious, but there's like when you're, if you're like a gaff or something, it's almost like working like on a construction set. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's not really necessarily a role for someone who sort of thrives in sort of a more creative environment. So I was so happy to be learning, but I was also like, I don't know if I want to work my way up. I don't know if that feels true to me.
Yeah.
Because I need at least some sort of creative element, I think, to kind of keep me sane if I'm going to be like part of a film set. So I was doing that internship, which lasted a couple months. And then I think I went back home again because I didn't know really where I was going to live or what I was going to do. Ended up back in Toronto. I had a job for a little while at like a casting house.
Okay, I did that too.
Did you work in casting for a
I
bit?
did. What casting agency?
It was I think it was either called Casting Central or Central Casting. I can't remember.
It's Casting Central.
I think it's Casting Central too.
I think it is.
I think both exist.
I think maybe they do. I think somebody we mutually know works there now.
No
actually.
way.
Yeah, your teacher at Second City.
Oh.
I think. But I feel like, what did you think about casting? How was that for you? Because it was terrible for me.
Oh yeah,
I
found it really fascinating because my favorite part of the filmmaking process in terms of directing was working with actors.
Yeah, totally.
And sort of working with the energy of actors and like realizing how much they can do and sort of amplifying their talent and just trying to like make them shine. I love that. That's great. So I thought to be around actors all the time will be a really great experience. And it was. I was there only for a few weeks, and then a lot of it had to do with sort of boring scheduling stuff where I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to hold this that long just for logistical reasons.
Right.
But being in the job, I was basically just filming a lot of auditions and like submitting them for people. I would come in for sort of big casting sessions and I would just sort of help run the thing.
Oh, see, that's fun.
Yeah.
I didn't do like the in-room stuff.
Oh, okay.
I was doing like all the planning of the things and then like seeing behind the what people are picking and how they're picking things, which wasn't great.
It's a little sleazy.
It's a little
and weird.
sleazy, yeah. So I would have preferred to be in there to see I would essentially get the tapes afterwards and be the ones to send them off to the network and then like hear the conversations, which was like not fun. But
right.
I think I would like that. But
that's
good.
To be in the room was good because I saw, sort of a different range of actors. Although sometimes it could get like a really, like they'd be like, well, how was that? And
they'd ask you.
Yeah, and I would say, oh, it's good. And they'd be like, don't sugarcoat it. Like, tell me how it is. And I'd be like,
God.
well, I thought it was great. It was, it seems like what they want. I mean, I wasn't the person to make that call in that room. And so
you're not directing them at that point, right?
No, not at all. No. I'm just filming their audition. I'm just there to run the camera, doing a self-tape.
Right.
But I think a lot of actors are they just need to know like how it was.
Yes.
And do I do it again? And and it's never perfect. So in their minds, so it's like, oh, we gotta do it again. And so I saw a lot of sort of anxiety and inner turmoil, but and just in a lot lot of honesty, you know, and then like, but you would see also there was coaching happening there was some acting coach there, I can't remember his name, and he would bring people in and be like, act for me and we'll act together. And they would act, and it was like, you know, it was fun to kind of be around, actually, to be in that world. But also, you know, it wasn't feasible for me schedule wise. Like, it turned out to be more of a part-time job than I thought.
Okay, yeah.
And so I was just like, well, what am I going to do? And then I ended up getting a call from my dear friend Jeff Zablotny, and he was like, I'm leaving my post at Circle as a media coordinator, and it was in the same building that my internship was at when I was doing office PA work.
Oh, weird.
So I guess they saw me walking around and they're like, oh, do you want to come in for an interview? And when we talk about faking it, I mean, this experience, because it was at the perfect time where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make money and sustain myself. I went in for an interview at Circle Productions, which is where I currently work. And they were just like, you know, do you feel comfortable doing director's treatments? And I had seen a director's treatment and I was like, sure I do. And they're like, can you do this, this, and this? And I was like, absolutely. And I did not know if I had any of those qualifications.
But you felt like you might be able to.
Yeah, I felt like I might be able to. And I knew Circle needed someone, and I sort of knew them just from being in the office. And I was like, I'm just going to, you know, pretend that I know this stuff, and I'll eventually know it. Like, I'll just figure it out. And that's exactly what happened, where, you know, it was, at first I was doing treatment work in a way that it's sort of already been done for a while. And then they were kind of like, they pushed me to try to design things in different ways. And so, and then I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually discovering that I might have sort of like an inherent eye for design, which is something I never studied, but I've always enjoyed and appreciated.
Yeah. Design in what way?
Well, basically what happens with a director's treatment is that, this is a commercial production company, and there's many like it in the city, but this one is mine. But there's many production companies in the city, and an ad agency will write a script for a commercial, say it's like for a Bell commercial. They'll send it out to, a bunch of different production companies and say, send us your directors, show us who you've got.
Okay.
And so every commercial company has a roster, and that roster is comprised of all sorts of kinds of directors. So you have directors who are great with cars, and people who are great with talent, and really visually driven directors. So all sorts of people who are good with food or kids or dogs. Depending on what the script calls for, we'll put out our best people for it.
Cool.
And then if they like one of our people, then they'll say, oh, we would like to quote this person on this script. And then they'll have maybe 3 or 4 other companies do it as well. And what that means is that they want the director to pitch that job. They want the director to come back with a treatment, which is like a laid out sort of visual representation of what the spot would look like. So I'm
so a little bit of a lookbook type of stuff happening.
Totally,
okay,
yeah.
I gotcha.
I source a lot of images online.
Right.
Like if it's a coffee commercial, I swear I've seen every picture of like coffee beans that there is on the internet. And I try to find just really not just visually interesting spots, but spots that. Or sorry, not spots, but visually interesting photographs or still images. But I'm trying to find examples that really tell the story and that evoke some sort of emotion. And that might be like digging through films or magazines or just all sorts of things online, and just finding the best way to kind of visually show that commercial using source material back to the agency. And then the director will write up what they want to do. So they'll say, this is the kind of casting I want. They'll always say about casting that we want like real people. We want authentic, real people, like no stock people. Everybody says that, but it's true.
Yeah, commercial industries want really, unique, right?
Like lived in Getty Images.
Yeah.
But
this is so unique. I've never seen something so unique in my life. Where'd you get it?
So unique. There's a lot of like words too that I've learned just being in the industry. Just weird words like aspirational, which is like to be aspirational is like not to be too high end, but it's almost like
you're aspiring to something.
Yeah, it's almost like when you watch the commercial, you're like, this family looks like they've got like a really sort of nice thing going. Like it feels a little bit better than reality, but not too much better. That's aspirational.
Okay.
And most commercials you'll see, because will be a little better than reality. Like they're not going to feel so true, like 100%, but it's like, this is a little better. So that's to be aspirational. That's used all the time. I also learned about the bite and smile, which is...
What?
You look like you're going to crack up. Which is like, oh, this person needs to eat this food, and the way they do it, which no one really does in real life, is that they bite something and then they smile. It's like
bite and smile.
Yeah, like this burger's great. Like how often do you eat something where you take a bite and you're just like, I'm going to smile about this.
I'm gonna say almost never, Ben.
Yeah, no.
Almost
but in
never.
The commercial, in the world of television
the bite and
commercials,
smile is everywhere.
It's everywhere, and you'll notice this. Like anytime anyone takes a bite of anything, Liz, I swear to God,
they'll smile.
There's going to be a little smile, even if it's a subtle one, even if it's like
it's technically a bite and smile.
Still, yeah, exactly.
Holy shit, Ben.
What
else? Is there anything else?
Those are the two that are really coming to mind.
So basically, you just needed to learn those, and then you're like, ready for your
aspirational
job.
bite and smile. Those are great. Coffee beans. Oh, I've seen so many coffee beans and Getty Images, and there's so many useless Getty Images too.
Yeah.
Like if you search Getty, you're like, I would never in a million years need to use this, and neither would anyone else. And you could buy it for like $1,000. You can buy the rights to use it.
Stock.
Yeah. Just a little tip.
Just a little tip.
So I'm responsible for helping our directors put together these pitches. Basically, it's almost like ghostwriting in a way, where it's like
because you're picking, but visually
ghostwriting
visually.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I just do some like sort of day-to-day like media management stuff where I'll just sort of compress video and things. But even doing that stuff, like I had no idea how to do that.
Yeah.
And then Jeff was here for a couple of weeks and he was like, before I go, like I'll show you how to do some of these things. And then I just pretended to know what I was doing, and then eventually I knew.
And you're liking what you're doing. It's a good place.
Yeah, it is good. It's
a very cool it's a very cool like position because you're dealing with people, but you're still using your talents and everything like that,
it's been very useful in that I've been working hand in hand with directors, and so and they'll do all sorts of things. Like we have directors who have made short films or worked in television, and they all pitch very differently. Some are really anecdotal. They'll be like, like this commercial reminds me when I was a kid and my grandmother would do this, and we'd all laugh about it. And others are a lot more sort of technically precise. But just seeing how directors all pitch differently has been a really great sort of educational experience, and listening to their pitch calls where they'll get on a call with the ad agency, I can listen in and be like, fantastic. Oh, this is how they have to they all have to sell themselves.
That's very valuable.
Yeah, and so that was really interesting. It's been really good to get a sense of how they all do it differently, and to kind of cultivate relationships with them as well. To be like, okay, like now, I know I've met some really great directors, and I've learned a little something from all of them. Some not actually particularly any that we still rep at our company or that like are even part of this company, but I've seen directors in the past go through the treatment process and I'm like, oh wow, like I would do the exact opposite of all these things. Yeah. But it's good to learn that, right? Like
definitely.
It's good to know like, oh, like if I were personally responsible for this spot, I would do it differently. But yeah, it's kind of funny, like it's coming up on 5 years now that I've been doing it.
Cool.
So yeah, that's how we got from graduating high school to here.
Yeah. And so how does being the Cineplex pre-show host, that old contest that you were doing,
yes,
how did that work into everything? Like, so if you want to just bring people up to speed on that.
Sure. There was this really bizarre and wonderful and wild year of my life where
how many years ago was that?
This was from fall of 2014 to about summer 2015, or just going into fall. So it was about a year, and it was just this kind of crazy time where all across Canada, on a couple thousand screens before every movie at Cineplex theaters, there was a pre-show that still exists now, but it was this like 15-20 minute sort of show that consisted of like interviews with celebrities and like, check out this sneak peek from this movie, or it would be like, this so-and-so is back, check it out. That's always my joke about the pre-show, is that things are always back.
Everything's back.
It's like, Chris Pratt is back.
And it's like, everything has gone away and now it's back.
Anytime there's like a movie, it's like, he's back or she's back, and it's like, well, they never really went anywhere, but but the way to sell it, it's funny that it's always like, oh yeah, so-and-so's back.
You can't just be like, well, Chris Pratt's here again.
I guess Chris Pratt's still around. Chris Pratt hasn't gone anywhere. Still kicking, and now he's doing this thing. Next up. Check it out. So that whole experience, so I never had any sort of professional on-camera experience in my life. I haven't acted since high school. I've always enjoyed acting. I just sort of fell out of it. But there was this opportunity. Actually, our good friend Ellie Weisbaum was like, sent me an email, and she was like, it was like the middle of the night, and it was like, you should try for this. And it was the first time Cineplex had ever done such a thing, where it was like, we are looking for the next
Canada-wide too,
pre-show
right?
host.
Was it Canada-wide?
Yes, it was all across Canada.
Yeah.
And so it was like, we're looking for our next pre-show host. Like, send us a 1-minute video of like why you'd be a great host. Now, Jeff Zablotny, who I mentioned in the past, that got me this job. God, I don't know where I would be, honestly, in this life without my friend Jeff.
Yeah.
Like, he's helped pave the way for me in so many ways, in terms of like,
that's beautiful,
my day-to-day life working here, and then helping me, convince me to do this audition video, which I'll talk about in a second. But like, because he helped put it together as well. He was kind of like, I had apprehensions where I was like, like, I've never really done anything like this, and is this really like a role I want 100%? I don't really know. And I remember we were just chatting one day, and he was just like, let's just do an audition video the way that you and I would make any video. Because to pass the time, like often, like, you know, he'll film me doing like just the stupidest shit, and then he'll edit it together in a way that like makes it just phenomenally interesting. It's like he has this incredible gift and this knack for taking something that's about nothing of any real value, and injecting it with this like real sort of incredible narrative, and like he'll be like, wow, I really care about this like very insignificant thing, and he turns things around very, very quickly, because like when Jeff's about something, he's like, I'm gonna get it done.
About it.
And so he was like, let's just do, so we make videos all the time, and so he was like, let's just do a video the way that we would just always do a video, and we'll follow all the rules, and let's just do it, and like, let's just see what happens. We'll just see what happens. I was like, all right, sure. I remember
Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Why not, Jeff? Yeah, what, you know.
All right, Jeff, let's do it, Jeff.
Let's do it. So I remember it was a Saturday morning, and he showed up at my place, and I had like jotted down a few notes about what I wanted to be in the video. And there was like a bunch of stuff that we shot that we couldn't use for time, and there was stuff that was like just too weird, I think. Like the Cineplex had for the longest time until very recently this like feature presentation bumper, which basically is like when the movie's about to start, it would show this like airplane, like it was so footage of an airplane turning into a spaceship, and then the spaceship would fly into the sky, and you'd see like an asteroid. It's very loud. And so I wanted to take that footage and like reappropriate it and basically just be like, ever since a young boy, I always wanted to be somebody, and like have the footage that they've used. But I was like, I probably can't do that because I don't like own that footage. But so there were some ideas that we were like, we got to shut this down. But we filmed everything we could, and we just walked around the city, and it came very naturally. We snuck into the Scotiabank Theater because Jeff has this incredible, like very small camera called the Blackmagic Pocket Camera, and you can just get it in anywhere, and it looks like this little stills camera, and no one ever questions it because it's so small. They probably don't even see it. And so I just rode the escalator a bunch of times to do this thing about, oh, I love riding this escalator.
I remember this. This is part of the video that everybody voted for.
Yeah, so that's what happened. Yeah, so we made this 1-minute video. We uploaded it, and like the next day, we just whipped it up and then put it on the internet. And then I got this email like a couple days later that was like, guess what? Like, you're in the semifinals. And I was like, no way. Because like I thought, you know what? Like, there aren't a ton of like incredible audition videos yet because you could watch all the videos. Yeah. I was like, there isn't a lot yet, but I'm sure towards the end we're gonna see like the really high end stuff, like the really good stuff. They took
a lot of time.
The pros. Yeah.
I want to pause here for a quick second, my lovable esteemed listeners, to tell you about a very exciting partnership for Faking It podcast. I recently came across a product called Temple Protein Bars. They are 100% Canadian, 100% all natural, and gluten-free. They help the busy and active individual get some extra protein and healthy nutrients, and they're freaking delicious to boot. I've tried the array of different brands of protein bars, and I cannot say enough how much I'm impressed by Temple Protein and everything involved with it. So here's the quick contest rules, guys. You can win a box of Temple Protein Bars. All you've got to do is head over to Faking It Podcast's Twitter. Now that's at Faking It Podcast on Twitter. Then pop over to Temple Protein's Twitter page. That's at Temple Protein. I want you to like both of our pages and then tweet at us both about your favorite part of today's show. That way you can maybe win a box of delicious protein bars, and I will pick the winner, put it out on our Facebook and our Twitter pages. And if you don't win this time around, don't sweat it. The contest will be back in the next episode of Faking It. Thanks a lot, and back to Ben Gordon.
Now, what I didn't realize what benefited me in the long run is that I'm not like a unionized actor, and they weren't looking for.
Yeah, they just want a free.
They wanted free range. Yeah, they wanted a free spirit. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
So they didn't. I didn't know that at the time, but. That's neither here nor there. But anyway, I just, we put the video up. I was in the semifinals. We had to read from a script and film that. My strategy was not to upload that publicly, which some people did, where they were reading the script. I was like, I'm just going to send this to them as like sort of like a private way, but they'll still have it. Because I wanted to kind of keep it on the DL. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I found out, and I knew for a few weeks that I was going to be in the finals. I can't remember how. I think I just got an email and they're like, we're going to be sending you some stuff. Like, get ready, like voting's going to be on this day. Mm-hmm. And so I remember like withholding that information from anybody that I was like, except like the people nearest and dearest to me, that I was like,
you don't want to say too much.
Say too much too early.
Because then whatever anything happens and then it doesn't come through, then you'll be like, no, I have to tell 6,000 people that I didn't get it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to hold out. But I was so in the back of my mind, I was like, oh my God, there's going to be this big voting thing. And I had
it's
filmed.
It's been nerve-wracking.
It is nerve-wracking. And I filmed some answers that because I think I found out because they were like, we need you to film 6 or 7 answers to these questions, and we're going to use them when the finals start, so that way people in theaters can see you guys and they can vote, just the general public.
Mm-hmm.
And then the voting started, and then it was it was the most insane 2 weeks of my life. Where it was just constantly telling people to vote. And I felt so bad because every day I'd be like, make sure you guys vote. Because the way that it worked was that the top 3 people who had the most votes would win. Mm-hmm. And so I was so
you just
constantly,
thought, well, hell, I'm in the semi, I might as well push this as
I
much
just
as
push
I can.
it. Yeah. Cause now I'm like, well, there's a chance that I could win this, which I've never won a major contest in my life. And so I was like, this is unbelievable.
Right.
And the way that Jeff and I went about it, because Jeff helped me make the video, and we talked about let's just make a bunch of content. It doesn't have to even be videos.
I remember this.
It could just be still photos, and we'll just sort of run it like a campaign.
Absolutely. You guys did a great job at that. I distinctly remember, and then you can know how many people on Facebook say I'm doing this. It's a Kickstarter. It's a this. It's a that, which is great. Everybody should continue to do it. Don't ever not do it. But I remember these photos of you with they were little infographics of don't forget Ben's with you in the background or things. Maybe your face was on stuff. I don't remember.
We would just do the most ridiculous stuff. We actually at one point one of my competitors, she's now a good friend of mine, but Sam Maggs, who was one of the 3 winners. Yeah. So we were neck and neck for the first week.
Yes.
And it was between 3 to 4 votes. It was very, very
I remember seeing that.
Cutthroat. And we actually talked about it at one point, we were this is kind of crazy. In a good way, it's keeping things competitive because it means that people want to keep voting. So that's great. But I remember she got the endorsement of someone on Twitter. It might have been Ben Mulrooney. And I was like, how can I compete with this? Because Sam, to her credit, has this amazing social media presence. Yeah. And I did not have that on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I had good friends of mine.
Yes.
I think the way that I won this, to be honest, was just having
consistency
friends that were consistent.
Yeah, I went on every day. I was
exactly. It meant the world to me because I was well, at least people are still clicking.
For sure.
But I remember when she got that endorsement, I was like, well, what can I do? And the first idea that came to mind was I scrolled through my phone and I saw the moon emoji with the weird purple moon emoji with these eyes that kind of look creepy. And I was like, I'm going to be endorsed by moon emoji. I'm going to be moon emoji is going to be my endorsement.
Yeah,
so then we photoshopped the moon emoji with me and we're looking at each other and smiling. And it was moon emoji supports Ben Gordon for Cineplex house. And it was just the dumbest idea, but there was something I think so weird and about it that it maybe
people just bought it.
People were okay, this is...
Yeah, of course, yeah, he's endorsed by... Yeah, moon emoji.
And then I remember a friend of mine got really upset about the Ben Mulroney thing and tweeted at Margaret Atwood. It was hey, Margaret Atwood, look at my friend. And then Margaret Atwood retweeted it and we were we got Atwood. It was trying to collect celebrities.
Margaret Atwood. Yeah. So E.T. Canada host Margaret Atwood.
Right.
It's
which is incredible because it runs the gamut, right? You're look at all these people who it's such a, in the grand scheme of things, it's just a silly contest. But it was just so funny to see people get so passionate about it. And I remember it it was such a whirlwind where it was I would try to drag myself away from my phone because I was constantly checking and I was oh my God, I'm really invested in this now. Because once you get to this point, and I hate to say this. I shouldn't say it. I feel like Donald Trump is in this position too, where he's I'm going to just run for this thing. And, I'm not expecting to win. And then now he's he's the presumptive nominee. And it's well, now I got to win.
I think it is so absurd that you just compared yourself to Donald Trump.
I know. What is wrong with me? It's the first thing that came to mind is oh my God. Because at first I was you know what? I'll do this for fun and it's not going to mean anything. So you kind of just
felt like a guy stepping up to say, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then it became holy shit, I'm doing this, and then holy shit, it's happening, and people actually believe in me.
Yeah.
But I get that that's a bit of a you're just wow, this is amazing that people are coming together for me.
Yeah, the momentum of it was so moving for me. I had no expectations initially, and then I was oh my God,
you won.
I really wanted it, and then we won it by a pretty big margin at the end, and it was
See,
shocking.
I thought you
to me.
you were the across the board winner, right?
Yes, yeah.
But then so what was the 3 people ended up actually hosting?
Yeah, they picked the top 3.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that was the whole premise of it.
Which actually benefited me, I think, doing the job because, right now, for instance, they have a new guy.
Yes.
And it's just him.
Yeah.
And which is great because...
That's probably his whole day or probably week, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, he's a radio host. I don't know. He's doing a lot now, but
Wow.
I think that like when you're the sole face of the thing,
Yeah, there's a whole lot more.
there's a lot.
They could just split it up amongst 3 people. It's a bit better.
It's a little more delegated, and so like you can, I didn't feel the weight of it all on my shoulders, like because I had never done it before.
Yeah.
And I actually, the work itself I found really fun. Like it was fun to
yeah.
go and like to be on camera. They wrote these scripts, and I'm sure that they would talk about this if they could, but like they had these scripts written that they initially were like, we're going to write to the characters that we think that you are. And I think that they thought that I was like kind of a dummy. Like they were like, he's a little dummy. He's a little silly. And so they would write me to be like, hey guys, like knock knock, who's there? Best pre-show ever. I would just say
that's so funny because you never delivered things like that. You delivered things in like an awesome Ben way, which was just so like adorable. Like, hey guys, knock knock. Like, you're in on the joke of that. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like people maybe are writing for you in a certain way, but that
and I didn't mind
really
playing like sort of
way.
like a little bit of an idiot. Like I'm okay with that. But like I remember being like, I mean, because the thing is that there was no room for improvisation either, and that it was very rigidly scripted, and it was like, and they moved away kind of from the jokier stuff and try to make it like sort of towards the end of my time a little more just like, this is what's happening.
Yes, yeah.
But I always liked that they were going for humor. I think I would have loved to like. I wish there was a little bit of more room to kind of play with it, but just the nature of the show, it's like, this has to be 10 seconds on the dot.
And so we're not messing around.
So it's like, say this line, say it again, try it with this intonation, and that's about the extent of it. But what I found in there, I would always try to squeeze in like little, even just like glances that were like, I know that this is a little weird that I'm talking to you this way, but like you and I are in it together.
Yeah.
And like, we're here, we're going to have a good time. Because I always needed to be me a little bit in it, or else I couldn't completely be like just a spokesman.
No.
And I don't think that's necessarily what they wanted, but
maybe it's just how you felt. Yeah. And maybe that whatever was being told to you.
Exactly.
Or felt, yeah.
Yeah. So it was, that was a really sort of eye-opening experience.
Was it cool to interview people? Like you must have interviewed, because you sat down with a couple. Like,
I interviewed one person.
Did you really?
That was it. Yeah. I interviewed one person.
The way that they cut that together makes it
seem
like
like,
you were
you do so many interviews. Yeah. No, I interviewed Carla Gugino, who played The Rock's wife in San Andreas, and that's what I was interviewing for. Yeah, I mean, she's been in a bunch of other stuff, and she was so nice. Great. Yeah. But she was like, and I remember telling her this is my first junket, and when I was actually at that junket, I remember being in the waiting area in this hotel. And this guy introduced himself, and his name was Rick. And I was like, oh, that's great. Like, nice to meet you. I had no idea who he was. And he was the guy that hosted E.T. Canada, I think.
Rick Campanelli.
Yeah, Rick Campanelli. And I had no idea who he was because I'm American. So I was just like, oh, cool, man.
You would have known him if you were a Canadian
See, that's the thing. I had no idea who he was.
Because I think that he used to do something on MTV, and he used to come to, maybe I'm thinking, no, it is this guy. He used to come to Much Music video dances. Have you ever heard of these things? Our high schools used to put them on. So Much Music would like do a sponsored video dance where they like play videos from like music videos, and then he would come and host them, and all the girls were in love with them and whatever. And I was just like, oh god.
He seems like a great guy.
No, yeah, he's a fun guy, but that's funny that you're, oh hey Rick.
Yeah. I was like, hey man, cool. Like, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I was like, I had no idea like his status.
Hilarious.
I'm sure in the back of his head, he's like, don't you know who I am? And I was like, no.
Will you endorse my tweets?
Yeah, I should. Please endorse my tweets.
Please, Rick, endorse me.
Endorse me.
That's too funny. So you had a good go with that, and that was for how long?
Yeah, that was 1 year, and it was really good. It was kind of, what was weird about it for me was being sort of in the public eye, and like I sort of prepared myself for that. And like when we first sat down, we had this breakfast, and it was like, you guys are going to be seen like all over Canada, and your lives are going to change forever. And we were like, whoa! It's like, oh my God. Our lives are like, you're going to be seen by this many people a day. Check it out. And I was like, oh man, like, this might be like a real thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what I'm aware of is like when people go to see a movie, including myself, like I'm not paying, $13 to go watch the pre-show.
No.
Like the pre-show is something that is on the screen.
It's like a bonus.
It's a bonus, but it's also something that people have to deal with. Like, it's like, okay, totally. I got to be there. And not everyone wanted to deal with me. And so, like, I became sort of used to how do I put this? Like internet vitriol.
Did you experience that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because they had our Twitter handles
What does
on screen.
vitriol mean?
It just means like just people who are nasty and they just want to be
Holy
nasty.
shit.
And they're doing it not, I think, to be to really try to like cut you down, but it's more that like, oh, I'm in the theater with my friends and like I'm gonna fuck around. Like that's the more of like the idea.
Hell?
But it was still like, oh, okay, like it almost was like going back to like junior high.
Yeah,
where it's
I feel
like,
really like
and I'm
offended
I was
for
like,
some reason
I'm
right
a,
now.
I'm a 27-year-old man. Like I don't need to worry about this. Like I know how big my ears are. I mean, that was the slightest of it. Like that was nothing. But
so
it was
people
just
would like at you and say
oh
shit?
Yeah, all the time. And like sometimes we'd have like a little bit of a back and forth, and like a lot of times it would just be like, oh, like, you know, like they just want to tell me they hate the pre-show, and then I'll just chat with them and they're like, oh, you're all right, you know. It was
as soon as they humanize you, it's like,
yeah.
oh, okay, this guy's probably not, why am I here, why am I doing this?
But it was my first real experience with that, where I was in a position where it was like, oh, like people are gonna hate me, like, and that's fine, like, because that's, you know, it's par for the course of being in the public eye.
It is, yeah.
But at the same time, it was like really sobering, and like I only imagine how it would be for Sam or Shannon, who are women. You know, there's a whole other element to that like, you know, that I would never have to deal with, which is like so much worse.
Yeah.
But you know, but it was still kind of a learning experience to be like, oh, like this is how it's going to be. And of course, as soon as I was off screen, it stopped. Like there was no more of it. So it's not like people remember. I mean, now mostly people will be like, I've seen you somewhere.
You look so familiar.
You look really familiar, and they never registered where it was. And,
Yeah.
and that's really, and like, so I'll just be like, oh, cool. Like, because I don't
have one
of
those faces. Bye.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, you've seen me in the pre-show, huh? You know, I don't want to be that asshole. But but I figure like, oh, like they might like have seen my face, and then in the back of their brain cataloged it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, it's really interesting because like people will be like, oh, like I've seen you somewhere.
Yeah. So
and,
you're part of people's whole like.
Yeah, you know, there was a
memory.
year where I got to be a part of their lives. And then they did another contest, Cineplex, where they were like, we're going to do it again, because they said it was really good. Like, for, you know, they got a lot of social media engagement, and it's like a big thing. So I remember they had the site set up again where you could upload audition videos. And so Jeff and I reshot the original audition video, like shot for shot. We went to every single location again, but I glued like this mustache to my real mustache, which is very disturbing. Like it doesn't look right, because I have a beard in real life, but like beard. I put this like blonde like mustache over my beard, and then wore this bowler hat. And I told them that my name was Mustachio, and that like I was like auditioning, and like I was like, please vote for me, but it was clearly me and just doing the exact same video
as Mustachio.
Yeah, and then Mustachio did not get very far in the competition, but
wouldn't
he's
it just
out
be
there.
Hilarious if you were later like, oh, this guy again.
Yeah, this guy again, but he, you know, he looks a little different.
How did he get in here?
And he was just like, hey, like vote for me in the pre-show. Like he had this really dumb voice. And at the end of the video, the one major difference was that the mustache like flew off my face, and I was like, oh, and I had to like kind of run after it. But yeah, so we kind of had some fun with just the nature of the competition, and but I met some good people there, and
that's good.
You know, what's funny is like I don't consider myself, you know, since we're being honest, this is faking it.
It is. Be honest.
You know, I don't see myself really as having like the physical presence of a host. Like I'm not very like, I'm not like, at least conventionally handsome. And I'm not like, you know, the guy that they have now is very handsome. He's like, he's like built to look like a host, you know?
Okay, well.
He's a very like, he's got a piercing glance. He's got a very slender frame, you know, and I'm not really like that. I'm kind of like, I'm a bigger guy, and I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm just not like, I'm not.
I prefer Ben as the pre-show
that's
host.
Good.
It honestly popped up, and I was like, I'm sitting next to my boyfriend, and I was like, who the hell's this guy?
Who's this guy?
What the hell? What'd they do with my friend Ben?
I'm sure he's great.
I was pissed. That's fine. I don't care. I want you there.
it was I feel like I understood the energy of it, but now I'm like, oh, like, you know, I do have this hosting experience now. And so I guess I could host things because I hosted for a year, but I also am like, you know, there's a part of me that's apprehensive that's like, oh, do people want to see me? Like, I don't know, because it's, you know, I heard a lot of people that didn't, and maybe in a different capacity.
Well, enough people voted you into the position.
Yeah. So
and it's not just friends. You couldn't have possibly just had all, like, I mean, like, I think that you are a funny guy, and you are somebody people probably enjoy watching, and you should do it if you want to do it.
Yeah, I think just
in
like
a different way, like maybe not in for films, but whatever you think would be,
I think just making, like, even when we make our own stuff and just giving yourself your own outlet is really like that's an exciting thing to do.
Yeah, you're doing something right now though that's a bit of it's a questions, but I know that you think it's funny because it's like this little thing. You're like, yeah, we just film it and we go for it. But I think that it's quite clever and I like what's happening with it.
Oh yeah,
is it called Questions with Ben?
Oh, we call it right now. It's called Life's Lessons Learned.
Okay.
Which is the most absurd title. I have no qualifications to give anyone advice. The way that this happened was that there was a friend of ours that was like, I don't really file my taxes. And this was years ago. And I was like, you should file your taxes. Filing your taxes is important. And we were kind of laughing about that. And then we were like, let's make a video about it. And we shot it on Jeff's iPhone. And we filmed like 5 or 6 of them in the span of like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then we just put a little like header on the top, like a little title card. And then we just set up an email. Yeah. And we were like, here's a show. It's barely a show. It's not a show.
It's just like these little excerpts.
It's just little things, and they're so quick to shoot and make, and the whole point of them is like not to think them through at all.
Right.
It's like just like here's a topic, and he'll throw me a topic, and then I'll just have to like ramble about it. And the whole point is for it to like not make too much sense.
Yeah.
But to kind of like in the back of your mind go like, like that. I see where he got there, maybe, but it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like that kind of thing comedically as well would be really great for you.
Yeah.
Because you have that, like, it's not maybe somebody who's writing for you, but you have, like, when you could do your own stuff, maybe some improv and some comedy.
And actually, I started taking, that was the other thing, was, like, I missed acting so much that I signed up for Second City last year, and I just completed the improv program a couple of months ago, with our dear friend,
Ashley Como,
who was on your show.
Yeah, Ashley Como.
I thought I never know.
I always say Como. I've had, since high school I've said that, but anyways, Ashley Como,
who was
wonderful. We had on a couple episodes past, and so she was your improv teacher.
She was one of my teachers, and she was
nice.
One of my favorite teachers, and it was like an improv. I highly recommend improv to
for
people,
anybody. Not even if it's just like you want to be an improv star.
No,
like if you are a CEO who's like terrified when you give a presentation.
Totally.
If you're a normal whatever day-to-day person, just do improv. It brings out amazing things in you.
It really helps sort of unlock these doors to your brain. Like you start to just trust in your own intuition, and like you said, like for anxiety or for just people who want to like flex the acting chops or just to meet
an outlet,
like-minded people.
Yeah,
it's great. So that was really good. That was like that has helped in terms of like finishing the Cineplex thing and being like, well, now what am I going to do? Doing the improv stuff. Like, I think I just want to keep. There's part of me that wants to keep
that alive.
Keep that alive. Just keep like doing things and maybe performing again, because I haven't performed in so long. I haven't performed
forever. That's fantastic. And you want to continue to make some films. You were talking about that. You're kind of freaked out about the idea, but you're like, I just want to maybe make a film, because you've been doing so much with other people and everything, but now maybe your own, like what you used to do in film school.
I really believe like that everybody has some level of, not to use the word aspirational again, but everybody has a level of aspiration, right? I think that we can all be in different walks of life and in different stages of our lives and be like, well, I'm still kind of striving for this thing.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I went to film school because I wanted to make films. And when I was making those films, it's funny, like I can't even bring myself to watch them now, because like I was in such a different part of my life, and I think I've kind of grown as a person, and I have a hard time watching my own work.
Oh yeah.
So I can't even really revisit that stuff. But like I was like, there's still, when I was in the process of making it, I felt like I was at home. Like I think that
just comfortable. You're just comfy.
Yeah, there's something about because especially in the role of directing, it's like it's really about working with a bunch of other people's skills, in a collaborative way, and bringing a group of people together,
each person and letting them do their thing, and then everyone contributes.
Yeah, exactly, and sort of delegating and sort of bringing people on this journey, and it's sort of this collective process, and I miss that so much about filmmaking. I miss working with people in that way, and bringing people's strengths out, and using it all towards this artistic purpose and towards this sort of common goal. I miss that, and so I've it's been a long time. It's been a few years since I made a film. And I realized, like, even just being on sets again or doing these little, these little things here and there, I'm like, oh, like, this is what it feels like, and this is why it's so much fun. I ran a workshop a few weeks ago for this idea I have, and it's a very it's sort of a weird like meta idea, but just to bring these actors in to kind of try it out, it was like, oh yeah, like this is what it feels like to work with actors, and it was that whole feeling came rushing back to me. I really think that it's funny, like my I don't know if you ever heard of polarity therapy before.
Haven't.
It's a little new agey and a little weird, but
okay.
I love it. Like it's actually helped me a lot. Where it's energy work. It's basically like it's meditation. It's almost like meditation, but combined. There's like a bit of massage involved. Like sometimes you'll get like your feet massaged, and there'll be this kind of like nice music on, and you'll just sort of like go into this very relaxed state, and then when you're done, then you just kind of feel better. I don't know how to put it in a better way.
Okay.
And it's working with energy, and I always kind of like I always saw filmmaking as like energy work in its own way, where it's like you work with the sort of energy of actors and crew, and it's about like mediating and understanding the energy of the people around you, but also the story you're telling. And that is so appealing to me, artistically. That's really what I want to get back to doing. But as we were talking about before, I was like, oh God, it's been 6 years almost. And so it's like a muscle you haven't flexed in a while.
Yeah.
Where you're like, God, will it still work? Like, do I still have the capability and the capacity to do this? Like, and I believe I do. And, I think if I keep it small and I keep it easy.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Yeah. Keep it simple. Easy isn't the right word. Simple is the right word.
Not overcomplicating is the key to those kinds of successes, I think.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a lot of shit to make good stories work.
No, especially in this day and age.
No,
it's
a DSLR and a mic, go and do your shit. And then if it doesn't work out, just film it again. Like
Exactly.
I truly believe that, yeah.
So it's just almost a matter of, I think, of getting over apprehension about because a lot of artists, I would imagine, have this sort of dilemma of like, well, what story do I have to tell? Is the story that I'm telling a valuable one? Will it resonate with people? Is there a reason for even this like 5 to 6 minute short film to exist? And, is it beyond just simply ego? You know what I mean? Like you want to make something that will speak to something. And that doesn't mean it has to be deadly serious, but it should exist for
more than just yourself.
More than just you, you know? And so I think that I'm the kind of person that will easily beat themselves up, where I'm just like, I've always been that way since I was a kid, where it's constantly, and there's this voice in your head that's just like, no, of course you can't do this, or like, you're a fraud, or this, people will see right through you. Like you're going to go and try for this. Well, people will see right through you. So like, what's the point? And I know that the voice in your head is not you. It's separate from you. It can be
a bit evil.
It can be evil, and it can be really convincing. And so I think for a really long time, there's been a voice in my head that's just like
making you fearful.
Yeah. I had a great time at York. I met a lot of amazing people. I never really was able to launch into any major career out of York. Some people were very good at that, and rightfully so. Yeah. The films I made, I never really could get them anywhere. But I accept that. Like that's okay. You know what I mean?
School.
It was school. It was a learning process.
And people are figuring things out.
But I think I'm a little older, and hopefully I know I'm a little older, but I think that I'm a little wiser.
It is a fact. I am definitely older.
But I really, I feel like now is the time, and there's also this idea of age too, where I'm like, oh my God, like I'm 28. I'm so old.
Oh, and don't even.
My 20s have gone. They've passed me by. And
that's good. Then make a film about
what have I done?
You know what? I think. I get what you're saying. Sometimes that's a bit of like maybe everybody has this. I want to be at this place at this age.
At this point, yeah, and it's.
And I try to let go of that now, because I don't know why I ever would think that I could like materialize something that I was just like, well, at that age, I've just decided. I've decided when I'm 21, a mere 21, that at 28, this is what my life will be like.
Right.
How could I do that?
And how rare is it that, first of all, you know what you really want at a young age, like exactly.
It's very rare.
And that you know exactly the trajectory on which to find that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's unrealistic, but I don't know. There's always a part of me in the back of my mind that's like, oh God, like, I'm getting to a point where it's like, I've enjoyed my job incredibly, but I'm also like, I've worked in one place for a few years. And so I know that particular job very well, but I'm like, I sometimes forget that you've cultivated a lot of skills from just doing that one thing. And I'm like, oh, I've just done this one thing.
Yeah, but it's one thing with a ton of other little branches.
Right. So I have to kind of remind myself, like, no, like I've done enough. Like,
I
haven't
respect yourself and how you spent your time. Like, it's not just all for naught. Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. I think that there's voices in the back of my brain that have just constantly been like, you know, don't even bother when it comes to getting behind the camera again. And I think that I'm realizing now that it's really kind of a now or never thing. So my major goal of this year is just to make something. And it doesn't have to really go anywhere. I'd love for a few people to see it, but I want to just have another film under my belt just to get back on the bike again, if it were, and be like, okay, I've done it again. I know how it feels. I remember how much I love doing it. And hopefully just take it from there and sort of go back to following that passion without the apprehension.
Just do it, man.
Yeah.
I just get Shia LaBeouf in here and scream at you. Do it!
Did you watch that thing that he did when he watched all his movies like backwards? So he had this, a lot of people thought this was total bullshit. I thought this was incredible.
Yeah.
At first, for the longest time with Shia, I was like, this guy, like, he hasn't lived long enough, and he hasn't
to be doing these things.
Yeah, like he hasn't earned his insanity, basically. That's how I felt. And then I saw he had this thing, I can't remember what he called it, but he had at the Angelica Theater in New York this like 3-day program where they showed every one of his films in reverse chronological order, and he had to watch them all. And people could come and go as they pleased. And
I heard he does a bit of this installation stuff.
Yeah, so this was an installation. So they were showing his movies backwards. And like we talked about not watching our own work. Well, most actors are like, I never go back and watch what I was in. But here he is, and there's a camera fixated on his face in the theater. So there's a camera sort of facing, it's almost like below the screen facing back towards the back of the auditorium. So you see all the people behind him.
Okay.
He's right there front and center. And, you know, and you can kind of guess based on the schedule what film he's watching.
Yeah.
And you can see him like laughing and reacting, and he's watching these movies backwards, so he's kind of like he's aging in reverse. Yeah,
he's aging in reverse.
And I'm sure with each of these films that he was in, he has sort of life experiences that are connected to them.
Yeah.
And like during like some of the Transformers movies, he would just go to the back of the theater and just like sleep on the ground, and then he would like go back and like, or he'd be like rubbing his eyes, and they just ran them consecutively. And it just got me thinking about like the things that we make at the stages in our life, and having to kind of confront them and watch them with a group of people. And then also as an audience member, watching something on screen and then being able to watch that person watch themselves.
Yeah.
There was just, I don't know, there were a lot of things about it
that
were really involved and really fascinating to me. And then since then I've been like, you know what, like maybe Shia's got an idea, like maybe he's got a point that, you know, like
maybe he has earned his insanity.
That's such a digression, but
no,
but we should get him in here to just do it.
We should. No, but I'm very interested to see what you do next, because I think that you're at this great stage to realize, like, I've been fearful.
Yeah.
But I want to stop being fearful, and I want to do something, and that you're, you know, everything that we've done in the time maybe that we weren't making films or something like that is helping us to cultivate, is helping us to realize what maybe we don't want to do, we want to do less of, and we want to do more of this thing that we love. Because why the hell not, right?
Yeah.
And it just seems that, I'm excited. I want to have you back on when after you've made your film.
Let's do it.
So you have to come back on.
See, this is great
and
because
complete it. Now you have to do it.
It's
because
on record.
You're indebted to me.
Exactly.
I want you to know that.
It's on record now, so it has to be done.
It has to be done. Within the year, we're going to sit back down on May 12th.
Wow, 2017. Oh.
And I'm going to check in with you.
Let's do it, and let's just see how we're doing. Have you talked to anybody twice yet? Are you planning on it? You have.
I talked to somebody. No, that's not true. I didn't talk to somebody twice. I interviewed my best friend, Ava, and she then interviewed me about myself and just why I did this podcast and different things about me.
Yeah.
And so, no, I haven't had anybody on twice.
Okay, so who knows what could happen.
Maybe you might be.
I wouldn't mind it. This is so much fun. Like, I'm having such a good time. Because, like, honestly, listener, I haven't seen, or, you know, Liz and I, it hasn't been anything intentional. We just have been doing our own thing.
Doing our own thing.
And to be able to sit across from you again.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, it's
really, really, like, it's just, like, invigorating to come back to somebody who was with you when you were figuring a ton of stuff out during school and artistically and obviously things that happen in life and whatever, and then come back and see that you're all right, I'm all right, but like I think that we should also make something together one day.
I think
that'd
that
be
would
so
be
much
incredible.
fun. I think we talked about that,
it.
like
I think
comedic stuff.
Totally should.
Yeah.
I think that there's so much room for that in the world.
There is,
and we could do something really fun and exciting with that. It'd be so
think,
cool.
Why not?
Do you remember when we were in the car and we were singing like Tegan and Sarah? In the car
when we made the documentary
your
together?
Documentary, I think it was Finding
God,
Ryan.
I do now.
And we were driving around at night. I think we were driving back to the university, and we were just singing in the car. And I was like, you hold on to these memories, it's funny. Like,
I remember that now. I didn't, but like, my goodness, Ben, that all just came back.
Yeah, and I remember like going to, I think it might have been like your family home, and like, we were just like, it was like late at night, and we were just watching like YouTube videos of like babies going through tunnels.
Oh my God, the baby going through tunnels. Right. Yeah, the one that's like, and it freezes and freaks out.
And then it just kind of calms down as it goes through the tunnel.
We were completely
and we were like in hysterics over.
Oh my God, Ben. This is crazy. My memory does not work in a consistent manner. Like it's not until somebody reminds me of something. But if I think I'm like Ben, my old friend Ben, but I don't think of those things until and then they're so intense for me.
Yeah.
When somebody reminds me, it's just like it's like
it brings you to that place.
Yeah, it's like a physical whoa.
I try to
I'm
remember a couple things about people. You know what I mean? Just to be like, like that time.
That's smart. I should do that.
Yeah, it's like those were great memories, and like you don't necessarily realize. I think with all great memories, sort of the importance or the weight of them until long after they're gone.
Right. Exactly.
But I'm glad to have had those great memories of us being in the program. Too. I'm very grateful for that, for those experiences.
Yes, same here. Well, I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And I say, why not? Let's make things.
Yes, let's make things.
And you should make things. And I'll make things.
Yeah, and let's help each other out. Here's the thing. I don't know if you're in Toronto, listener, but there's a great community in this city.
There is.
And so if you're here, drop us a line.
Yeah, drop us a line at Faking It Podcast at Ben Gordon.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's Ben Gordon.
It's Ben Gordon.
I couldn't get Ben Gordon because there's too many.
Some asshole took it.
There's a basketball player who invented his own energy drink called the BG6.
So
although I don't know if it's still, I think it's
your name will never
discontinued.
be yours.
Never. I feel like it's been taken from me.
It has been.
Is it Liz Hodgson or I never say it properly.
Oh, it's okay. Pretend there's no G.
Okay.
Hodson.
Liz Hodgson.
There you go.
Got it. I've been wondering.
That's it. Hodson. But you can say it any way that you like. There is a G, but my father reminds me it's not Hodgson.
Yeah, it's Hodgson.
But there's a G. Hodson.
You own your name completely.
I do.
I bet there's no one else with your name.
Well, there is somebody. There's a track star in like Virginia or something like that who has a Lizzie the way that I used to spell it, because I dropped the IE because my parents spelled it L-I-Z-Z-I-E.
Right.
And then in like high school, a guidance counselor was like, we don't call you Lizzie anymore. You're registered as Lizzie. We'll just drop the IE. And it was an L-I-Z-Z. And I was like, okay. And it just stayed like that on attendances.
Really?
Yeah. And I was just like, all right. And it just followed me because that's how I continuously was registered as things.
And you just became.
And I just was like, cool, Liz. And then so the double Z and the Liz Hodson. I'm pretty much the only one. So I'm gonna keep it. So I bought
the track star.
Buy the domains.
Them.
Forget
buy
them.
all the domains.
She'll stop running eventually. Everyone does. I'll own it forever.
You should.
Yes, but maybe at it's Ben Gordon and at Faking a Podcast. If anybody out there wants to come and visit us,
come say hi.
It's gonna be great. I want to thank you so much for coming on, Ben.
Hey, thank you for having me, Liz.
This has been so great.
I hope that there was a kernel in there for someone. I hope
there's
there was
many
something.
kernels. I think there's a whole bucket.
Good. There's
which
a whole
would then
bucket
make
of kernels.
Popcorn.
Like popcorn chicken from the Colonel Sanders.
There could be two meanings here. You're right.
Faking It is brought to you by KFC. This week.
And that's where it is. Thanks so much to my friend Ben Gordon for coming on the show, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please remember to like Faking It Podcast on Twitter and Facebook at Faking It Podcast, as well as Temple Protein at Temple Protein. Remember to tweet at us both today for your chance to win a box of Temple Protein bars. There will also be some new guest blogs coming up on the website, so check that out at www.fakingitpodcast.com. Thanks so much, and until next time.